Welcome to our lesson on calculating and using measures of central tendency to predict statistical behavior and to also summarize data sets that are given in particular situations. So what exactly is this project about? In preparation for our upcoming stock market simulation in class, we are going to be selling and buying stocks and seeing how that behavior changed from year to year during the 1920s. But in order to really understand that, we first need to understand how to average and summarize sets of data, how to differentiate with which method of central tendency is best to use and when, because there are multiple methods, and if that behavior or if those calculations can help us predict future events based on statistical inferences we can draw. So the real question is, going forward towards the stock market, are you ready to make some money or will you risk losing it all? This particular lesson in measures of central tendency will teach you how to quickly find three different measures of central tendency. All three, whether it's mean, median, or mode, have the same benefit in helping you determine what the middle or center of particular data can be, or is, excuse me. And then we're going to explore further how to differentiate between each of the ways to calculate central tendency and when it might be appropriate to use one over the other, but that's going to come in the supplemental resources you'll find at the end of this video. Don't forget to check those out. You're going to want them before you take your quiz at the end of this lesson.
Hi, my name is Maria. I'm a mathematician, and today I'm going to tell you what mean, median, and mode are in mathematics. They are all measures of central tendency, which means that they're all just ways to find the average of a set of data that you're given. So let's say that the set of data I'm given is the numbers 0, 2, 2, 20, 5, and 3. All right, so I want to find all three measures of central tendency. The mean is finding the average in the way that most people know it, which is to add up all your data. So I have 0, obviously, 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 20 is 24, plus 5 is 29, plus 3 is 32. So I take the sum and I divide it by the number of elements that I have. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 32 divided by 6 is going to be my mean. So it's going to be a decimal. I'm going to do 6 goes into 30 5 times, and I'm going to get a remainder of 2, so that's 2 over 6, which is 5 1/3. So my mean is 5 1/3. My mode is the number that appears the most. So if I look at my set of data, the number that appears the most is 2, because that's the only number that appears more than one time. And the median is the number that falls in the middle of your data when you write it in order from least to greatest, or greatest to least for that matter. So what I would do is line these up: 0, 2, 2, 3, 5, and 20. And I'm going to go ahead and just cross out each side. So if I cross out one from the right, one from the left goes with it. One from the right, one from the left goes with it. Now, I'm not left with a number in the middle, I'm left with 2. So when that happens, you have to find the mean of the two numbers that were left in the middle. So you do the average of 2 and 3. So 2 plus 3 is 5, and 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. So my median would be 2.5. So these are the three different types of central tendencies that help you find the average of a set of data that you're given. My name is Maria, and I just showed you what mean, median, and mode are in math.
All right, so thinking ahead, after this video is done, there are going to be additional practice sets through Khan Academy that you're going to want to play around with and really test your competency level on mean, median, and mode before you advance to the quiz. But other questions I want you to consider going forward is, what is an outlier? Outliers are basically going to be data that are not completely in sync with the other data that's represented, and so it might end up skewing the accuracy of some of those measurements. So depending on whether or not outliers exist, there might be a more appropriate measure to use between the three. Also, is there even going to be a mode if no numbers repeat themselves? In that last video, Maria showed us a data set that had the number 2 occurred twice in the set. And since that was the number that repeated, we went ahead and called that the mode. But what would happen if we didn't have a number that repeated? Just something to think about. We also want to know what the actual differences between median, mean, and mode are, and can you define those? Are one of those methods to measurement more relevant when we're dealing with money and behaviors? And because we are bringing this all back together in our stock market simulation part of the lesson plan, I want to know, how might simulations play a role in future decisions? Do you think it's a useful tool you might use again in the future when you're dealing with your own money and making decisions for your own future? Just something to consider. And do stock markets differ from personal banking? And if they do, how? Both are dealing with money and investment, right? Something to think about as well. During our actual stock market simulation in class, we are going to use a chart that looks identical to this to evaluate different corporations' trading prices for each year. In class, you're going to have 4 brokers, and everybody else is going to be buying and selling stocks. You'll be recording those prices that you traded for each corporation and year in a chart that looks just like this, so that we can calculate profit and loss statements for each year involved. Lastly, in the end, we're going to go ahead and take our profit and loss statements for each year and compare that to everybody else, all of our peers' evaluations in class, and develop the mean, median, and mode for each annual closing price. Once we're done developing our predictors for our in-class simulation, we're going to compare that to the real data of the 1920s stock market. But sometimes shortcuts are nice, right? If we're dealing with larger data sets, there might be an even more convenient way to calculate that. So let's take a peek here at this video I recorded for you on Desmos.
Okay, what I'm about to show you guys here is how you can calculate mean, median, and mode for large data sets using Desmos.com. If you have data sets that are less than 10 individual entries, then this may not actually be worth your time. But when we're dealing with large data sets, oftentimes the calculator can be a shortcut that is quite useful. And if you do not have access to a TI-84 calculator like the ones we use in class, then Desmos can be a great option. So you're just going to go to Google and type in Desmos calculator. And once you get into your Desmos calculator, if you look down, sometimes when you open it up, it may just look like this blank screen with the graph. But if you look down at this keyboard here in the lower left-hand side and pop that open, you can go to functions. From functions, there are 3 tabs here, one for trig, we're not there yet, one for stats, and then miscellaneous functions. So we're going to click on the stats function. And if you notice here, there's a button that says mean and median. So, and then when we move on a little bit later, the standard deviation button will actually be another great measurement tool for you. But if I were to go to click on mean, if you look here in the upper left-hand side, it says mean and then parentheses. What the parentheses are trying to get you to do is to enter all of the data sets. So, for example, if we were talking about how many shots Sally makes in a basketball game. The first game she landed, 10 points, we'll say, instead of shot. And then the next game she had an off game and it was 6. And then she had a fabulous game and it was 18. And then we were down to 15, 12. Another game at 15. Maybe, let's go with another 12 game. A 16 and a 22. She had a fabulous game. If I give Desmos all of those different data sets there, notice here in the bottom right-hand corner, it says 14. So the mean of all of those data sets, or the average point she scores per game, appears to be 14. Now, another cool trick is I can go ahead and copy all of those data sets. I can jump down to the second line, go back to functions, and now maybe I want to know what the median of that exact same data set is. So I went ahead and ordered the computer to use the function median, and then I can just use Control-V to paste those exact same data sets and calculate. Oops, I think I have too many parentheses there. And now I can calculate the median of that exact same data set is 15. So once again, this is just a really useful tool if you have larger data sets and you want to use this for projects and things of that nature going forward. All right, I think that's it.
Okay, so wrapping it all up, and where do we find the other important pieces of this lesson? First of all, I'm going to direct you your attention back to our flipped classroom, and notice here on that screenshot, the green arrows are going to be where you want to start. The green arrow, if you drop down on instructional resources, that's where you will find links to do your Khan Academy practice. It takes you directly to the exact practice sets you want to use. You're also going to find your supplemental reading that you need to do to prepare for the quiz and additional extension activities, because believe it or not, there are other ways to calculate central tendency. And then there are also quite a few different graphical models we can use to display statistical behaviors. After you feel nice and prepared for that, go ahead and follow the red link under 21st Century Skills video. That link is going to give you access to your online quiz, which is required as the summative assessment from this particular lesson. Down here on the left-hand side, we have video credits. Thank you to Maria, the mathematician. We watched her video from eHow Education on what is mean, median, and mode in mathematics. I also used Desmos.com to film the second video within this link. Khan Academy is going to be where you find your practice, and this entire lesson was recorded using Screencast-O-Matic. If I can bring your attention briefly to the blue box on the lower right-hand side, keeping in mind that this particular stock market analysis and lesson is one part of a much larger multidisciplinary integrated unit plan on the Roaring Twenties. If you want to see the entire unit plan, go ahead and follow that tiny URL, and it will take you to our comprehensive lesson plan that this is a component of. Thanks.